Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Shafrazik. So today I will present for the subject BML 3824 Maritime Transportation Law. So the topic that have been chosen is strategies in combating the increased climate and ecological risks within the chosen developed countries with the Arctic borders. So without further ado, I'm going to proceed about the first topic first, which is the introduction. The climate change has become one of the most critical environmental challenges over the past few years, with the Arctic region bearing its effects more severely than any other regions of the globe. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is IPCC, the Arctic has experienced rising temperature at three times faster than the average global rate due to feedback of mechanisms such as the albedo effect. So what is albedo effect? Albedo effect is a situation where different surfaces can reflect the sunlight out into space. To make it clear, it's a process where melting ice exposes darker surface that absorb more southern radiation, accelerating further warming. So this climate change affected the ecological, socio-economic, and environmental conditions in the Arctic regions such as the Norway, the Kingdom of Denmark, and Iceland intensively. Continue. From the environmental perspective, the melting of ice disrupts marine food chains, endanger the polar species and habitats, and lastly, it threatens the indigenous populations that rely on traditional fishing and hunting. From an economic standpoint, these changes will create new shipping routes and bring natural resources to the Arctic regions, but there will be consequences of environmental risks due to the new economic activities. Therefore, understanding the implications and consequences of the climate change in the Arctic is crucial for formulating effective mitigation strategies on both local and international levels. So I'm going to proceed to the next point, which is the environmental implication that have been experienced in Iceland. So there are two types of environmental implications that have faced by the Icelanders. So the first one is the glacial retreats and sea level rise. The second one is the disruptions of ecosystem and biodiversity. So we're going to go through one by one. So what is glacial retreat and sea level rise? So glacial retreat is the process of glaciers decreasing in size occurs when melting and ice loss surpass new ice accumulation due to a new climate change phenomenon. So since 1890s, glaciers in Iceland have experienced substantial ice loss, with the decline rate intensifying from the year 2000. So this glacial retreat has led to extensive environmental impacts, including the growth of glacial lagoons that threaten both natural ecosystem and the economy in the Iceland. So glaciers are one of the Iceland defining natural features that covering approximately 11% of the nation's land based on the National Survey of Islands. So this study highlights that Iceland has lost nearly 40% of the total volume since 1900 and could be shrink an additional 30 to 40% by 2100 based on the Icelandic Meteorological Office. So this glacial melting contributes directly to global sea level rise by zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.8 meters by the end of the century, referring to the government of Iceland 2020. So this effect threatens Iceland's low-lying coastal regions through the increased erosion and flooding. The consequences of this retreat extend beyond the environmental concerns. For instance, changes in river discharge patterns impact water resources stability, agriculture, and infrastructure. So, as the glaciers shrink, the communities that rely on the consistent glacial runoff face challenges maintaining energy output and irrigation systems. So here's the examples cities that located in the Iceland, which is the Reykjanes Peninsula. So this is the capital of Iceland, also known as the Smoky Bay, which is located in the country's lowest lying area that this area make it highly susceptible to ocean threats such as rising sea levels based on the studies Iceland 2022. So these cities are located in southwest Iceland. The peninsula lies along the Reykjanes Range Plate's boundary, once an active volcanic zone. However, with no volcanic eruptions in the area for the past 800 years, the ridge has gradually sunk due to the absence of new volcanic material. This has resulted in structural challenges for local communities and heightened their exposure to the sea level rise. Moving on to the second effect, which is the disruptions of ecosystem and biodiversity. So the warming of Arctic waters has significantly altered the marine ecosystem surrounding Iceland. So, for example, fish species such as the cod and capelin have migrated northward in search of cooler waters that impact the traditional fisheries that form the backbone of Iceland economy. Backbone of the economy, referring to the Arctic Council 2020. So these invasive marine species have begun entering the Icelandic waters due to climate change. So, for example, the cod, also the scientific name is Gadus morhua. This is a species, the top predator that acts to control the abundance of smaller fish, and any changes in cod stock size alter competition and food availability for seals, seabirds, and predatory fish. Moreover, the capelin, also known as the serve as major food for predators like cod, whales, and seabirds, which decline in capelin stocks can reduce cod species growth rates and weaken the seabirds breeding success. So it is due to cod species that depends heavily on the capelin for food, which forms a tightly linked predator-prey relationship. These situations directly affect the local commercial fisheries for the long-term catches and reduce the stability and productivity of coastal and offshore ecosystem on the island. So we're gonna go to the strategy one in order to cater the problem. So here's the strategy one, which is the climate action plan. Oh, sorry, the climate action plan 2020-2023, which is Iceland has long been recognized as a global leader in renewable energy development. So nearly 100% of its electricity is generated from the hydropower and geothermal sources. Thus, this Climate Action Plan 2020 and 2023 outline national goals that emphasize a reduction of 50% of in greenhouse gas, which is GHG, emissions by 2023 and 2030, and achieving carbon neutrality by 2040 based on the government of Iceland. In order to meet the target of the Climate Action Plan 2020 and 2023 and 2030, Iceland is focusing on several key actions. So, for example, one of the key is incentive for clean cars and fuels, as the government of Iceland has set a generous and temporary tax incentive for purchasing electric cars and other clean vehicles. Due to the current regulation has been expired, the government plans to replace with a better calibrate, a longer term system that will increase incentive for people to buy clean vehicle. So, the goals of this strategy one is update system is to provide more reliable and effective financial support that encourage household and businesses to choose a cleaner vehicle by shifting from short term to long term and stable incentive structure. Iceland aims to swift away from fossil fuel cars, lower emissions from vehicle, and move swiftly closer to its national climate goals. Moreover, Iceland already relies on renewable energy for electricity, so the long-term incentive is crucial due to transportation remains one of the biggest factors of greenhouse gas emissions in Iceland. Furthermore, Iceland still faces some challenges as the country remains dependent and relies on imported fossil fuels, especially for the aviation and shipping sectors. In order to switching to this updated alternative directly, it requires a major adjustment in terms of financial investment, new technology, and cooperation with international business partners. Most importantly, the carbon emissions incentive directly benefit the Arctic in the future, which helps to reduce the warming that is driving the rapid melting of glaciers across the region. So, in this way, Iceland's commitment towards the renewable energy and carbon neutrality support both its own sustainability and also contributes to wider international efforts to safeguard the rapidly changing environment in the Arctic regions. Moving on to the next part, which is the strategy two, which is the ecosystem protection and restoration. So this is the Iceland has adopted several measures to strengthen the natural ecosystem against the climate impacts. So there are two strategies. The first one is the establishing marine protected areas, also known as the MPA, in order to conserve Arctic marine biodiversity. Iceland established a marine protected area in March 2023, which has recently expanded its network to 17 areas covering almost 2% of its fishing territory area, which has become a prohibited area for bottom fishing activity. One of the area is Börjojoro, which is located in West Iceland. This area is a multi-purpose zone that preserves traditional activities while protecting specific species and ecosystem. Iceland Northeast Hope Spot, which is the ecosystem protection, also been designated a Hope Spot by the Mission Blue, which is an international recognition for its unique and valuable marine environment. So the designation of this MPA, which is the Marine Protected Areas, is a forward step that potentially provides stronger protection, and it serves to highlight the important area and encourage community efforts for the future protection and sustainable use. So, this implementation requires a framework that combines Iceland management tools such as the Council's High Seas initiative, like a Central Arctic Ocean Fisheries Agreement, also known as the CAOFA. This objective of this agreement is to secure healthy marine ecosystems by preventing commercial fishing until the adequate scientific research can determine whether a sustainable fishery is possible. Moreover, this agreement covered a single high seas area of approximately 2.8 million square feet that is surrounded by the exclusive economic zones, which is the EEZ, of the five Arctic coastal states. Uh, In October 2018, this agreement was signed by 10 countries, including both Arctic coastal states and non-Arctic states, which is emphasized the Canada, the Republic of China, the Kingdom of Denmark, which is representing Greenland and the Faroe Island, and the others country. So, the Central Arctic Ocean Fisheries Agreement is the significant due to the rapid climate change that affects the melting of the sea ice in the Arctic oceans. So, this proactive approach ensures that the common tragedies such as the unregulated exploitation are avoided, and it is becoming a pioneering aspect for an international fisheries treaty that incorporates indigenous and local knowledge into a scientific planning and a governance. So, There is a specific research program for the indigenous knowledge integration, such as the Joint Program of Scientific Research and Monitoring, also known as the JPSRM. This program is under the CAOFA, which is I've already stated before. This program has a collaborative effort to fill the large gaps in knowledge about the ecosystem in the region before any fishing occurs. So one of the aspect is a fish stock assessment. So which targets determining the distribution, migration, and abundance of fish stocks to assess whether a sustainable commercial fishery is even possible. Uh, Thus, this Central Arctic Ocean Fisheries Agreement designs a new standard for the agreements of environmental by implementing sustainable fisheries management framework for both scientific research and indigenous knowledge to manage the ecosystem before treated by the exploitation. So moving on to the most important part, which is the role of the Paris agreements in the Iceland. So the impact of climate change on human life is a very broad in terms of the food crisis, health, and to population migration due to natural disaster. So, there are two articles that have been stated here, which is the Paris Agreement Article 4 and Paris Agreement Article 7. So, we're going to go through one by one, which is the first one, the Article 4 Paris of the Paris Agreement. So, referring to the Paris Agreement Article 4, this agreement requires the country to submit an update outline of the national determined contribution, which is NDC, that emphasize their efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and move towards long-term low emission development. So, in recent year, the Iceland has been recognized by the European Union, which is the EU, and Norway as the country that has set it goals to reduce carbon emission at least 55% by 2030 in a collective NDC goal. This situation happened because Iceland already obtains almost 100% of its electricity and house heating from the renewable energy, such as the agriculture and land use changes, and transport sector decarbonization in terms of EV adoption and clean fuels. So Article 4 also stated that important to reduce greenhouse gas as the country experienced four times faster climate warming than the global average, leading to accelerated emissions such as the melting glaciers and sea warming that needs strong mitigation in Arctic countries, especially the island regions. So, these environmental changes affect some critical sectors such as the coastal communities and the fisheries. So, this Article 4 ensures that the national climate change policies are aligned with the mitigation framework to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by requiring Iceland to maintain and revise its long-term goals for carbon reduction and updated its NDC regularly. So, this article serves as a guidance to reduce the rate of climate change that affect the Arctic regions. Uh, this art this agreement also helps to prevent the further glacier loss, coastal erosion, and fisheries disruption in the future. So, in this way, the Article 4 of the Paris Agreement provides both mitigation strategies and protection of the environmental future in rapidly changing Arctic regions. So, moving on to the next part, which is the Paris Agreement Article 7. So Paris Agreement Article 7 basically focus on the climate adaptation that emphasize the need of the countries to strengthen their ability to deal with the adverse impact of the climate change. It is encourage the nations to plan, implement, and communicate adaptation strategies that enhance the resilience, reduce the vulnerability, and protect the ecosystem and the communities. For the Iceland, this article is particularly relevant due to its location in the Arctic, where the climate change is occurring at rates far above the global average. So, Iceland face multiple climate related challenges, including the rapid glacier melt, sea level rise, increasing frequency of extreme weather events, and disruption to the marine and territorial ecosystems. So these changes directly affect the critical sectors such as the fisheries, agriculture, hydropower, and the tourism. So in response, Iceland has developed comprehensive national adaptation plan, which is the NAP, that identify the key vulnerabilities, outlines, and adaptation measures, and lastly, to prioritize their actions to protect the communities, infrastructure, and the natural resources in the Iceland itself. So, last but not least, is the conclusions. So, climate change has brought about the significant changes in the weather patterns around the world, with far-reaching impacts on the environment, ecosystems, and human life. So, these changes have been these changes are triggering more frequent natural disasters, threatening food security, and creating new challenges in dealing with resource crisis. In order to address these challenges, collective action is needed through mitigation, such as reducing emissions, and adaptation, such as the changes in agricultural system and infrastructure. With the right approach, we can face this climate change and maintain the balance of nature and human well-being in the future, referring to the Paris Agreement as the guidance. So that's all from me. Thank you.